Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, Psychic, all the way from the Gold Coast. I hope wherever you are in this amazing planet of ours, you've been having an absolutely fantastic week. Here on the Gold Coast, it's been a bit gloomy and wet and rainy, and we're all whinging because it's wet and cold and it's winter, but that's okay. I mean, we've got to have a change in the seasons, and it's like our lives have to change every now and then, don't they? If everything was the same, it'd be boring. So we have to have the ups in life and we have to have the downs in life and we have to have everything in between. So this week, the Simply Tarot card of the week is one of those cards that a lot of my students used to always struggle with. They struggled with the court cards, what's known as the pages, the knights, the kings, the queens. Now, the page of pentacles is a young woman up to the age of 25. Now, the reasons why I call the pages young women is I don't know too many people, even in today's strange world, that too many men that run around with a dress on. So that's why I've always looked at the pages as being young women and the knights as being young men. So it's up to the age of 25. Now, I want you to be aware if you have children, and it doesn't matter how old they are, they will always come out in your reading as a page or a knight. And the reasons for that is that in your eyes, they're always going to be children. So, no matter how old they are or how big they get, they're still going to be pages and knights in your eyes if you're doing a reading for yourself with the full tarot deck. The secondary meaning of this card is a student, male or female. Now, when I talk about a student, we're all still students of life. It doesn't mean you're physically going to school or you're off to college or university or doing some sort of training course. You may be, but for most of us, we're still students of life. We're still learning as we go through every single day. So if this card comes out in a reading for you, as it's done this week for the card of the week here on the show, it means we've all got something to learn this week. We've got to be a little bit like a student. We've got to look at what do we need to learn? How do we need to focus this week? And there's, maybe some surprising revelations there, that things that we thought we knew, all of a sudden we realized that we didn't have quite as much information there, or there was something that we could add to it. I think life is a journey. It's not a destination. It's a journey. We're on a journey every single day, and we should hopefully learn something new every single day or add something else to our repertoire, because otherwise life would become boring. So we're still in the astrologically, we're going to move to the astrological section now. We're still in the sun's still in Leo, and it's a really amazing time of the year. One of my favorite times of the year is the sun in Leo, because I feel everybody's sort of happy. No matter where you are in the world, everybody's got something to smile about. In the Northern Hemisphere, you're still in summer. It's relaxed. It's barbecues. It's cookouts. It's having fun in the outdoors. Before you get ready for the long, dark time of winter and fall and the cold and getting ready for the Christmas season and Thanksgiving and all that sort of stuff, it's a real party time. Here in Australia, even though it's cold and it's wet in a lot of parts and the snow's falling in parts of Australia where they do get snow, it's still a time where we celebrate things. We sort of tend to sort of think, okay, spring and summer's just around the corner, so we'll make the most of the little bit of cold weather that we do get, and some parts get more than I get here on the Gold Coast. But it's a time where we sort of, look to sort of brighter days coming for us. So that's a really important thing. So the sun will be in Leo now for a little bit longer before it moves into Virgo. So we've got Mercury, the planet of communication, is going retrograde at the moment until the 25th of this month. Now, I quite often talk about Mercury retrogrades on this show because Mercury retrograde is meaning every form of communication that you can think of, from snail mail, your devices, your computers, your internet connections, anything that is a form of communication can go haywire at the moment. I affectionately call this time that happens 3 times a year where people don't have their listening ears on. They say, yeah, I'm listening to you, but they're not really listening, or they're not really paying attention. So if you have something that's really important to say, then stop and check that that person has actually understood you, understands what you've been saying, has absorbed it, and hasn't just given you lip service of, yeah, I understand. No, repeat it back to me, please. And then you'll find that they haven't really been listening. Quite often they'll get defensive because they say, oh, I just forgot. No, they didn't just forget. It's Mercury retrograde. It's a time when we're sort of a little bit like space cadets. We're looking out the window instead of paying attention to the teacher and the blackboard or the whiteboard these days. So it's a time where you need to really make sure, if you've got to sign any documents, you've got to do any sort of business that's really, really serious and really important, make sure that you more than triple check it. It's the time, if I have to sign documents or legal papers, that I make sure that I print them out and I read them out aloud. Now, the reasons why I do that is you quite often pick up a mistake when you do it out aloud, where if you just scan your eyes over, you think, oh, yeah, that looks right, and you sign. No, please read it out aloud, make sure that it's right. It's the time sometimes when contracts can go backwards or take longer than normal, or something that, if you've got a house sale and it looked like it had gone, to the next level and everything was hunky dory, and then all of a sudden they pull out or something happens or they don't get the finance. That can be a Mercury retrograde. On the upside of Mercury retrograde, it's a time when we are meant to slow down a little bit and let our thoughts just run wild. It sometimes can be the greatest creative time of the year, where we get lots of new inspiration and new ideas and everything like that, that helps us plan the next few months, because our next retrograde is not until November. It'll be November, December. So Mercury goes retrograde 3 or 4 times a year, depending on the year, goes for about three weeks at a time. And it is a time where we really are meant to slow down a little bit and take stock of things. Now, with Mercury being in its own sign of Virgo, it's going to have a really forceful effect this time, the more forceful, because everybody's being asked to be very pedantic. Make sure that you really understand what you're signing. Make sure you really understand your conversations. Make sure that you jot down your ideas that you might get. Don't just think you'll remember that later, because you may not. It's very, very important. Now, Mercury at the moment is also conjunct or holding hands Venus, the planet of love and affection, which is also sitting in Virgo. So this is an interesting conjunction here, because, we've got the planet of communication on one hand, where I'm telling you to really make sure that you're very, very focused, that you've got your listening ears on, you're really intently listening to any conversation. And then we've got Venus holding hands with that. So for many people, it's a time when they're going to meet somebody special. They might go on that date and think, wow, this person is amazing. Now, I'm not saying that they're not all going to be amazing. What I'm saying is make sure that you're really looking at things squarely. You're not seeing things through a little bit of a blur there of how Mercury wants you to see them, that you really are taking the blinders off and seeing this person for who they truly are. And this may be an amazing time where it doesn't matter what your star sign is, that you may actually meet the love of your life now, and you've met them under a Mercury retrograde where they haven't got anywhere to hide, really, if you're really being focused and consistent with what your little list is that says that you want in a relationship. If you can go tick, 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 that's amazing. So just be aware of that. So Mercury retrograde, yes, obviously is affecting Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus, but it's also the opposite sign of Pisces. So you need to be very careful, if you're a Piscean, of your communication at the moment. It's very, very misunderstood. This is not the time where you feel sorry for yourself and take yourself off and not be responsible in your job or the jobs that need to be doing in your life. It's a time where you've got to really sort of knuckle down and double down and force yourself to get up off the couch and do something constructive. Pisces can tend to be a little bit lazy at times like this when Mercury's retrograde, particularly when it's in Virgo. So if you are a Pisces and you've been feeling a little bit lackluster, can I suggest give yourself an energy drink or a shake or a cup of coffee and say, right, this is what I'm going to achieve today, and make sure that you do, because you can quite easily slip into this complacency where you won't get up off your backside and do anything constructive. You'll put it off till tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and before you know, the year's gone. So that's a little warning there for Pisceans. So we've got Mars conjunct Jupiter in Gemini. Now, Mars is the planet of action. Mars is the planet that gets us up off the couch, gets us out of bed of a morning, says, come on, let's go, get your gear, let's go. And Jupiter is the planet of opportunity, luck, and expansion. Now, while it's sitting in Gemini, it's really, really interesting, because it's asking us to think outside the square. It's asking us to be a little bit like a Gemini. Dart from one thing to another, have many ideas, let them come in, let them go. It's like sliding your fingers on your phone, going from one side to the other. So look at it in that way. So Mars in Gemini, Mars conjunct Jupiter in Gemini is going to be affecting the air signs, which is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, and also the opposite sign of Sagittarius. Now, it's not saying that there isn't time for opportunities here, that, if you really put the effort in, you can make hay while the sun shines. You certainly can do that. But just make sure that you're not over-exaggerating what the opportunity may be, because Jupiter can exaggerate a little bit too. It can say, this is 10 times bigger than what it really is. So just make sure that you're really listening. Again, I come back to that listening part. Make sure that you fully understand what the opportunities are and how they're being presented, and then you'll be able to move forward. Now, it's interesting, we've got Uranus, the planet of the unusual and unexpected, has been sitting in Taurus now for quite some time. And I looked it up this morning and I'm thinking, last 3 degrees of Taurus means that this is really going to ramp up for all the earth signs, particularly Tauruses, Virgos, Capricorns, and the opposite sign of Scorpio. And I was thinking, here we go. They're really going to feel the intensity of Uranus in Taurus for this last little bit. When I looked it up, it's there till 2026. So we're only down to the last 2 years. So usually when a planet gets to the last 3 degrees in any sign, it's when we feel the most effect. So I'm going to put my neck out there and I'm going to say, for those signs that I described, there is going to be change, there is going to be opportunities, and there is going to be things that are going to happen very suddenly and out of nowhere. So from here on in, for the next couple of years, if you're one of those signs, you really need to make sure that anything that you're doing is for the right reasons. Don't do something to be nasty or horrible to someone else, because it will come back to bite you, and in a bigger fashion than you can ever begin to imagine. On the positive side, unusual, unexpected things can happen. They can happen out of the blue. You can get opportunities like you've never had before. It can really affect things like, your financial status, things like that. Not necessarily saying everyone under those signs should go out and buy a lottery ticket because you're going to win. I don't mean it necessarily in that way. If you've worked hard for things and you've been diligently working towards things, then things will happen. And they will happen for the right reasons, and they can happen suddenly and out of nowhere. So we've got the North Node, which is not actually a planet, is sitting in Aries at the moment. And the reason why I want to talk about this, because I want to relate it to all the 12 signs. Yes, particularly the fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and the opposite sign of Libra, but it washes over to all the 12 signs. Now, when the North Node is in Aries, the North Node is trying to show us what we're aspiring to achieve. Now, with the North Node in Aries, to me, it's showing each and every one of us what we're aspiring to achieve is a new beginning, is new opportunities, is sort of get a little bit of fire in your belly, be excited about things. If you've been putting off a project or you've been waiting for the right time, now's the time to start exploring that and start putting down some timelines, start to formulate some plans and say to yourself, is this the right time to start something new? Because I'm feeling that with the North Node here, it's showing us the way forward. It's showing us what the potential is, but it's also showing us the potential risks or pitfalls or the things that we maybe haven't formulated enough or the things that we haven't worked on, but it's showing us the way forward. So let's not waste this opportunity of this very short window of the North Node being in Aries, where each and every one of us can get up off the couch and do something constructive and start some of those projects or start those thought processes, because it's not far till the new year. We've only got 5 months and we'll be talking about New Year's resolutions again. So let's get a little bit of a head start this year. Let's sort of start looking at the things that are around us. And I know I work with people all around the world. People are very restless at the moment. They're very concerned. They're very concerned about their personal finances, their jobs, where their local economy's going, things like that. People are very restless at the moment. So start to use that restless energy in formulating some plans that may help you come out of this funk type of energy, or put down some plans or some blueprints for the future. That's what this is all about. So finally, we're going to talk about Neptune is sitting in Pisces, and Neptune is retrograde at the moment and will be till towards the end of this year. So Neptune's the creative energy. Yes, it affects all of the water signs, which is Pisces, Cancer, in Scorpio, and the opposite sign of Virgo, but it washes over all the other 8 signs as well. So if you've been feeling a little bit as if your creative energy has gone into a slump and you're not able to sort of activate it and get it up moving again, don't be too disheartened, because there'll be waves of it. There'll be some days where you feel incredibly creative and you've got all these ideas running in your head, and the next day it's absolutely like somebody turned the tap off. And it's like I'm saying to you, when that happens, gather those thoughts, write them down, put the ideas down in your device or your phone or something like that, so you've got something to go back to later. Don't miss those golden opportunities, because creative energy can't flow all the time, because otherwise then how would it be creative? It'd just be part of our everyday life. So we have to capture those times when it does happen. Also, we've got planet of Saturn, which is the planet of discipline, is also retrograde until towards the end of this year, sitting in Pisces as well. So for many, many people, they sort of feel, particularly Pisceans and the water signs, as I just mentioned, but it flows through to all of them. Some people are sort of feeling at the moment that they're sick of being restricted, that they're sick of being told what to do. They're sick of, nothing moving fast enough. Every time I sort of try and take one step forward, I'm taking 3 steps backwards. Well, yes, this is Saturn's role, is to slow things up a little bit. But his role is also to make sure that you're really understanding the projects that you're trying to get off the ground. Are you doing them without being fully informed? Have you really formulated it? Have you really thought about it? Or are you just doing it for the sake of, or someone suggested that you should? So if there is a restriction or a limitation, or somebody sort of going mad at you about something and saying that's not the way it should be done, or maybe you need to pull your socks up or improve your behaviour, or whatever the case may be, take notice of that, because they are speaking the truth, and they are speaking the truth for your own benefit. So it doesn't really matter what your star sign is. Yes, it affects the water signs more predominantly and Virgo, but it washes over the other 8 signs. So it's for all of us. We need to sort of look at, what are the restrictions? What are the limitations in our life? How can we work around them? How can we work with them? How can we make our lives a little bit more peaceful? And sometimes the answer is, it's not meant to be today. Maybe it's tomorrow or next week. So don't put extra energy in if you're not getting anywhere fast. But for most of us, it's about not really understanding why the limitation is there. So go back and explore that a little bit. We're going to take our first caller, and it's Donna in Enderbury in British Columbia in Canada. Are you there, Donna?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Do you have a question I can answer for you, please, Donna?
Well, my world is upside down, so there's many angles we can touch on, but I guess I hate going to this one, but obviously there's someone in my life who I'm curious about, want to hear kind of what your thoughts are on him.
Okay, can you just share with me that person's first initial, not their name? We don't need to broadcast that around the world.
His first initial is B.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first, to go back to your first part of your question there, was you said your life's upside down. Look, I'm really sorry for that at the moment, but I think it's very, very necessary. I think your life needed a good shake up. It was sort of like we needed to shake everything up and see what fell out and what we can salvage and what maybe we can put in the trash and where we go from here. So don't look at that as necessarily a negative. Look at it as a positive, that, life might not be going quite the way that you want it to, but it's been shaken up and sort of moved around for a reason, so that we can get the good bits out of it, and we know where we're going to need to focus our energy over the next few months. Now, look, as far as the relationship's concerned, it's a really interesting situation there, because as I went into his soul and into his energy, what I got was, well, why are you asking me where things are going? Isn't everything good? And I sort of was a little bit taken back by that, because normally you go in and you pick up certain things, and then, I go in and ask the question what they think about you and where they think the relationship was going. This person beat me to the punchline, sort of asking me, why was I asking these questions? Isn't everything great? So from their point of view, they're not seeing anything that's wrong. So that makes me a little tiny bit concerned, Donna. Are they just seeing it as they want to see it, or truly do they believe that everything's great and you're the one with the issue? Why are you questioning everything? Isn't everything great?
I have a lot of issues. I've lived a full life of trauma, and speaking on the shakeup in my life, that makes sense. I would like to, because honestly, I'm struggling. I don't have anyone. There's no one here. It's a very toxic community. I've been abused my whole life, and I've just done a lot of healing, and I'm a smart person, and it's time to evolve into that next step. And my trauma, though, is obviously in me, and I'm getting triggered, and I guess I'm overthinking things with the guy.
Yeah, well, he doesn't believe there's anything wrong. So I've never seen in all the years I've been doing this sort of work, they don't normally come through so powerfully that he answered my questions before I even asked it. So that's really amazing. That just sort of shows me how confident he is, and it wasn't a smarty pants answer. He was genuine. Like, what's the problem? Isn't it great? So look at that as being
like that, I think.
For all the work that you've been doing on yourself, look at that as him being the reward in your life to bring some sort of balance, to be the compass. You know what I mean? To sort of help you maneuver your way out of things. I think you're doing amazing. Just keep up the good work. And, toxic people will always be around no matter where you live. Unfortunately, that's just the way of the world. But you don't need to lower yourself to their level. You just keep working on yourself and, take it in little bite-sized steps. Don't look at you've got to try and sort it all out yesterday or today or tomorrow. It happens when it happens. And sometimes we don't realise how much progress we've made until sometime later and we look back and think, oh, gee, I've come a long way. You didn't realise it because you were just consistently working on it. So, Donna, I hope that's helped you. We've got to move on. We're moving on with Lee in Jacksonville in North Carolina. Are you there, Lee?
Yes, I am. This is Lee.
Do you have a question for me, Lee?
Yes. My life at the moment is not really at its best, and I'm like financially going downhill, even though I'm trying to help others, but I don't know what's going on. It's one thing after another. Like my car broke down, my house has bad storm damage, and I don't really have the money to fix all that. So I was wondering if you have any advice for me.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Lee, that you're going through a rough patch. I mean, look, a lot of times we tend to sort of think when things in life happen to us, like, the car breaks down and we have storm damage or we get sick or whatever the case may be, we think we're doing something wrong. And we're not necessarily doing anything wrong. It's just part of life. It's just one of those things that we couldn't prevent, we couldn't change, we couldn't stop from happening. And we all have these life events, which are called lessons or character building, whatever label you want to put on them. But the thing is, they tend to all sort of clump together. And in my personal experience, if you've got no money in the bank, that's when everything goes wrong. It's like Murphy's Law, we call it here in Australia. Everything can go wrong, does go wrong, and we'll add another couple of piles to that. And that's sort of the energy I'm picking up from you, that where you sort of feel, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Why is this happening? Well, I want to be very clear with you. You're doing absolutely nothing wrong. And maybe the lesson here is it's wonderful that you're trying to help other people, but maybe you've got to put yourself at the top of the queue now, Lee. You're the one that needs help, not necessarily everybody else. So any resources you've got, I think, need to come back to you. And that's not being selfish. That is being, logical and practical. If we don't take care of Lee, then how can Lee turn around and take care of someone else or try and help somebody else if you're not in a good position? I appreciate that, money is very, very tight at the moment. And I think it probably will be till the end of this year. I wish I could say that there was a nice windfall coming, but I didn't see that, Lee. But what I did see is consistently each week you're working towards a goal of, trying to get yourself back up with your head above water. And it will eventually happen, but it is going to take a lot of hard work. And it's going to take some sacrifices in as much as sort of, maybe letting go or selling some stuff off to make the job a little bit easier at hand so that you can get the house repaired, because that's most important. You've got to have shelter and you've got to have transport to be able to go to work and do the things that you need to do. So they're two major areas of your life as well as your health that we need to be sort of focusing on. I want to just be very, very clear. You have done nothing wrong. This is not karmic payback or, a karmic slap in the face because you did something wrong, 16 years ago or in a previous life. This is just called life. And we all have these events that seemingly are out of control. That's something that we didn't sign up for, but it's what happens. It's part of our journey here on Earth. They're showing me 2025 is going to be a hell of a lot easier, Lee. Is there issues with the current job? Is there issues with the job, Lee?
The what?
Is there issues around your job?
No, I am retired. I'm 75 years old.
Right. Yeah, but they were showing me that there was an opportunity there to make some extra money, and I wasn't sure how that was coming in.
Yes, that I do around Christmas time. I work for the Salvation Army as a bell ringer every Christmas. I've been doing that for 10 years now.
Right. So does that give you a little bit of extra income, sweetie?
Yes, it does. It gives me a little extra income every year around Christmas, but only once a year. In my little area, it's hard to find a permanent job at my age. I'm quite old.
I understand that, but what they were showing me was that that's why they showed it to me, was the job was a bit iffy because there isn't a job at the moment. But maybe what the lesson here is, Lee, that maybe you've got to turn around and swallow your pride a little bit and maybe go down to the Salvation Army and put your hand up for a little bit of help yourself. And I know that that's a hard thing to do when you don't see yourself as bad off as other people. But, darling, this is the time when, you know, you've got to be repaid for a little bit of kindness that you've given over the years, you know, not just a
Right.
job at Christmas time, but, you know, sometimes we have to swallow our pride a little bit and say, hey, I need a helping hand. And that's what I'd be doing if I was you. I'd be sort of going and letting them know. You don't know who might be connected to the Salvation Army that might be able to come and help repair the house at a cheaper cost, or, you know, supply materials or something like that, that, you know, if you don't ask, you don't know, sweetie. And, you know, you're a good person. And the last thing I want to see is you're stressed out because there's too many things that are going wrong that aren't enabling
Right.
you to get on with life.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I have already stopped helping everybody who's coming asking me for help because I really can't do that anymore. So I am
No, you
trying to think about myself a little more now.
Yeah, you have to. That's the lesson here is you've got to put yourself first. But I would mention it to your co-workers down at the Salvation Army that, you know, the things that have happened, and see what somebody suggests, because I know that there's a helping hand coming, and it's good. It's deserved, Lee. That's where we've got to leave, Lee. We've come to the end of the show. It's really interesting how people are struggling around the world like Lee. And, you know, that's the sort of stories I hear daily with my work, that people are struggling, good people are struggling, you know, things that we should be able to take for granted, like shelter and being able to, you know, use our car to get from A to B. And it doesn't matter whether you're 20 or you're 80. It's a time in our lives where everything is very, very uncertain. There's so many elections going on around the world, and people are sort of, you know, on one hand, you know, they're saying the economy is great, and then the next hand they're talking about homelessness and people starving. So, you know, look, I'm sure for some people their worlds are great, but for a lot of people out there, it's a very, very, very tough time. And I think we all need to be aware of that, and we all need to remember that and give a little bit. We don't have to give everything we've got, but give a little bit to those that really do need it. You know, by making a donation of even a few dollars can make a difference to some of the charities around the world that are struggling to try and help people put food on the table. And it's not just in the US, it's not in Canada, it's worldwide at the moment. So that's my little message this week is maybe if you can find $5, go and donate it to one of the local charities. This week I want to leave you with a song that maybe a lot of people don't sort of know. She's one of my favourite singers, and she's very gutsy, and she wrote songs that a lot of people said, oh, that couldn't have been right. But a lot of the experiences I'm sure that she wrote in her songs were from personal experiences, and it's Tony Childs. And the song I'm going to leave you with this week is Don't Walk Away. So until next week, have a great week, and bye for now.